Special thanks to Kiwi Space Marine for allowing this story to be shared. Check the description for their details, and now, on to the story. I flung myself to the ground as blobs of plasma streamed over where my head had been just moments before. Rolling into a nearby ditch, I listened as the superheated enemy fire hissed through the air above me. Picking myself up, I fired several bursts back at the enemy before retreating back into cover. The agonized screams of the dying and the sound of explosions echoed around me as I crawled back to the rest of my unit, making sure to keep the shattered remains of a wall between me and the enemy fire. "There's too many of them, Captain," I called out to my superior as I reached the remnants of my platoon. "We'll have to fall back." "Negative," the four-armed Thurnek shouted back. "We can't fall back. We must retake the city." "We can't, sir," someone else protested. "The enemy fire is too great." All conversation stopped abruptly as several artillery shells landed nearby, the thunderous crack of their detonations causing everyone to hit the dirt. Dust and debris flung up from the blast filled the air as we got back to our feet, our armor's respirators filtering out the worst of the detritus. "How long until our relief arrives?" the captain demanded of Private Klenstar, the radio operator. Klenstar, an insectoid Hactra, shook their head. "I just got off the horn with command," they replied. "Our troops are still stuck in orbit. They can't get past the anti-air defenses." The captain swore. I stared out into the smoke-filled sky in dismay, watching the fires that raged across the horizon. The Galactic Concordance's 12th Army, which I had the misfortune to be part of, had been stuck on this rock for the past 2 months. We were trying to take it back from the hyper-expansionist Mycene Directorate in order to regain control of a vital hyperspace lane. So far, though, our efforts had been stymied by a severe breakdown in our logistics, and the campaign had stalled. The enemy, by virtue of controlling the hyperspace lane that we were so desperate to reclaim, didn't have this problem. They had quickly called in reinforcements of their own to beat back our forces in orbit and on the ground. After 2 weeks of losing territory groundside, the Concordance had managed to scrape together enough ships to regain orbital superiority. However, getting those reinforcements through the thick network of enemy anti-air defenses was proving to be a tough challenge. The Directorate had been smart in the placement of their guns and missile batteries. They were clustered either around vital civilian infrastructure or very close to our forces. An orbital bombardment would thus result in catastrophic collateral damage. Those of us on the ground couldn't get near the defenses, as the enemy had dug in heavily near the sites, stopping any advance we made with plasma cannons and walls of artillery fire. As we crouched behind our wall, at a loss with what to do, I saw Klenstar put a claw to their dust-covered helmet they were wearing. "Sir," the Hactra cried out excitedly, "I'm getting reports of several ships exiting hyperspace." "More Directorate forces?" the captain asked sharply. "Negative, sir," exclaimed the insectoid. "They're from the Territorial Union." "The humans?" the captain said in amazement. "What are they doing here?" I was also confused. The humans were one of the newer arrivals on the galactic scene. No one knew much about them. All I'd heard that they were bipedal, and that they had the paradoxical attitude of being simultaneously extremely militaristic, while also being extremely anti-war. I wondered why they were here. Their territory was nowhere near the disputed area between the Concordance and the Directorate. While I was pondering this, I heard Klenstar's radio crackle again. "Sir," the radio operator reported, The humans claim to be offering assistance to our forces. They say they'll be sending troops planetside. They'll be landing within minutes." "What?" The captain was stunned. "Are they insane? Do they not know about the anti-air? They'll be fried." "They don't seem to think so, sir," Clenster replied. "They're apparently on their way now." "Look!" Corporal Yerton. Another Thurnek called out, pointing wildly at the sky. "Up there!" Making sure to keep our heads low, we all turned to look as several fireballs streaked across the sky, plummeting towards the enemy positions. "What's going on?" I asked. "Is it a bombardment?" "I reckon it's starship fragments," Yerton suggested. "The crazy humans tried to fly through the missiles and got swatted." "No, wait," the captain spoke over all of us. "Private Stenchak," he called to me. "Pass me those electro-binoculars of yours," he said, referring to the optics dangling around my neck. I wordless complied, handing him the device. Putting them up to his eyes, the captain gazed at the mysterious objects as they got closer and closer. "There's something about them," the captain said. "I can't make it out." As they drew nearer, I saw that the objects were traveling too fast for the enemy defenses to get a bead on them. Smoke trails spiraled into the sky, and plasma bursts spat in wild arcs as the Directorate struggled to get their missiles and guns on track. When they were just a couple hundred meters off the ground, the objects abruptly decelerated as rockets activated from their underside. As they slowed down, they began popping flares and chaff to stop the Directorate from destroying them in their now vulnerable state. "Why, they're drop pods," the captain cried out. The pods began to land haphazardly behind the Mycene lines, throwing the Directorate forces into disarray. The confusion was sown deeper when the pods burst open, and armored figures began to emerge from them and attack the disorganized Mycene troops. The metallic chatter of the humans' automatic kinetic rifles contrasted sharply with the electric crackle of the Directorate's plasma rifles, as both sides tried to outdo each other in seeing who could kill the other first. One of the pods slammed into the ground not far from us, causing some more crumbs of supercrete to tumble from the broken wall we were still cowering behind. Tentatively peeking over the jagged edge, I saw the pod's door, as it was sent spinning end over end from explosive bolts. Before the chunk of metal even landed, an armored human had burst forth from the metal cocoon and was firing at the disorientated Directorate forces nearby. I at first assumed it was a robot. Sure, it sounds foolish now, but at the time it seemed like a reasonable conclusion, considering the human was clad in an all-covering armored pressure suit, topped off by the now ubiquitous angular helmet, and green-eyed face-covering respirator that have since become synonymous with the Territorial Union's military forces. It also didn't hurt that I was first introduced to the soldier by the image of it systematically terminating the Directorate infantry. It was only after surveying the rest of the battlefield and seeing a pair of humans drag a wounded comrade to safety was the robotic notion dispelled. As we gawked at this display of combat prowess, I noticed a pair of Mycene troops setting up a heavy plasma repeater and pointing it at the human. Without even thinking, I rose up from cover and fired a burst from my plasma rifle. While I wasn't sure that I hit anything, such was the damage to my combat sensors, my attack did alert the human. Without skipping a beat, it turned to the Mycene, raised its rifle and fired with that same machine-like efficiency exhibited by its fellows. And the human definitely made sure it didn't miss. Looking away from the human, I raised my optics to my eyes and scanned the battlefield. To my surprise, The humans were actually breaking through the entrenched Directorate forces protecting the anti-air guns, and had even managed to disable some of the batteries. As more and more enemy defenses fell to the humans, I finally appreciated the beauty of their strategy. The reason the Directorate's anti-air weapons were so effective was because our shuttles and dropships had to enter a planet's atmosphere at a low enough speed to safely decelerate, land and deploy troops. Thus, they were easy pickings for enemy fighters, missiles and AA guns. The humans, though, were apparently crazy enough to skip the safely decelerating part and all but slam into the planet's surface, giving the defenders no time to react. Furthermore, the humans had planned their drop so that their soldiers would land in clusters near the enemy anti-air defenses, allowing them to swarm the Mycene. The last Directorate forces soon fell to the human soldiers, and the anti-air batteries went silent. Within moments, shuttles and dropships from both the Concordance and the Territorial Union were descending through the atmosphere to deliver our much-needed reinforcements. A movement nearby caught my eye. To my surprise, the human from earlier was jogging up to us. "Thanks for the assist back there," it said to me. "What?" I exclaimed. "Thank you." I said, "That was insane. Without you, we would all be dead." I gestured wildly to my comrades. "Who are you guys anyway?" Corporal Yurton asked in amazement. The human simply chuckled. "We're the Territorial Army," the soldier replied. 96th Spaceborne Infantry Division. "We're here to assist you guys." The human suddenly raised its hand to the strange angular helmet it was wearing, after nodding a few times in response to some communication or other. It turned back to me. "I have to link up with my unit now," it said. "Thanks again, and good luck." As the human jogged off to join the main group of Union soldiers, my head was still reeling from the insanity of it all. Emboldened by the lack of any Directorate forces, I carefully made my way over to the human's pod. Some lettering was stenciled on the side of the vehicle, in both human script and Concordance Standard. 96 Spaceborne, the text read, followed by a phrase that I felt both encapsulated the human strategy perfectly, while still being vastly understated: "Death from above."